Hello, today is June the 12th, 2013, and I'm John Smith. Welcome to the Psalming Effect. And I post this weekly meditation from Weyburn, Saskatchewan, where I live and where I serve the Church of Christ here. Did you ever have questions that were concerning and were bothering you, and the answers were not forthcoming? How frustrating is that? We run into that sometimes. I remember as parents of teenagers, our oldest was having a health crisis when he was in actually he was, I think, 16 or 17, and things were not going well. He was anemic and ended up having to go to the hospital to have a blood transfusion, and over the next several weeks had several blood transfusions as team after team of different experts were trying to figure out what was going on with him. And in the meantime, my wife and I and our whole family were so concerned. We had questions, and the answers were not forthcoming. And it was very frustrating. It was very hard. Maybe you've had a situation like that in your life. Maybe a relationship. You know, sometimes relationships go sideways, important relationships that we want to try and fix. Something's going wrong. Maybe it's already really badly broken and we would like to fix it, or we would like to at least have some kind of peace. But there doesn't seem to be any answers. We don't know how to make things better. Why does this keep happening? Why do you keep saying what you do and doing what you do? Why does it never get better? How do we resolve this? What can we do to do things, to communicate, to function in a better way? Can this relationship ever be healed, or at least if it's not completely brought back together, at least healed in an important way? And there's a lot of questions that don't have answers. And we might have, on a much lesser scale, the same problems with a vehicle or with something in our house, an appliance that's not working, and we take it to an expert and they can't seem to fix it, and we have ongoing questions and the answers are not forthcoming. We find that frustrating. I think we find it frustrating because, well, we're human beings, and we're bound by time. We're finite beings in the human flesh. I think God does give us hope of eternity, but before the grave, we're on a clock. And so when things are going wrong, and lots of things go wrong, we age, our health deteriorates, our relationships go sideways, and some of the other things that I mentioned, things go wrong at work. We have questions that we want to find answers to quickly because we only have so much time. And the longer our questions go unanswered, the more frustrating and the more pressing it is for us to get this resolved. And it's hard for us. The other thing that limits us is just that we're human beings. We are limited in our power. We are broken in some ways because of sin, and we, as Paul talks about it in the book of Romans, we sometimes know what the right thing is to do, and that's what we want to do, and we end up not doing the right thing. And at other times, we know what is the wrong thing, and we want to avoid that, but time and time again, we find ourselves doing the wrong thing again. And that gets very frustrating. And how is this ever going to get better? When is it ever going to get better? Is it ever going to get better? We have questions, and the answers sometimes are not forthcoming, and we find that frustrating. So our being bound by time and our being limited by our humanness can make this a difficult thing in life. Well, where do we turn? Psalm 69 is a really interesting psalm because I think it helps us to look to God and to really help us deal with this when we have unanswered questions. Let me just read a few verses here. I'm in Psalms 69 and I'm going to read verses 16 to 18. Answer me, O Lord, for your steadfast love is good. According to your abundant mercy, turn to me. Hide not your face from your servant, for I am in distress. Make haste to answer me. Draw near to my soul, redeem me, ransom me because of my enemies. Well, you can hear what the psalmist is doing there. David, who wrote this psalm, he's crying out for answers from God, and he feels like the answers are not forthcoming. If you read through this psalm, you'll see that two of the prominent things in this psalm is that he is really suffering and really in distress, feeling like the world is doing him in, that his enemies are overwhelming him. He has he has questions that are not being answered, and he doesn't understand why he's going through this. And so he's crying out to God. And like with several of David's psalms that we encounter, this is a psalm where he does complain a bit. But it comes from a place of faith. You know, if you go to the later part, and this is a lengthier psalm, I think it's 36 verses, but starting at verse 30, he praises the name of God with a song, etc. In verse 33, for the Lord hears the needy and does not despise his own people who are prisoners. And verse 34 or verse 33, 35, for God will save Zion and build up the cities of Judah. So David usually returns to this place, and even in his psalms of lament or complaint, they come from a place of faith. God is there. God will either give me the answer, and God sometimes does that for us, right? That's why it's important for us to put our faith in him, is that sometimes he gives us the answers that we're looking for that help us get through things. And God did that with us in this health crisis that I'm talking about, and in many other circumstances in life, that does happen. But what also happens, and why our faith in God is important, is because sometimes the answers that are not forthcoming never do come. God does not always tell us why or what is the plan or how exactly all of this is going to work out. God doesn't always give us those kind of answers to our questions. Sometimes the real answer to our question is simply God himself. God is the answer to the questions that I have. I'm going to put my trust in him. I don't know why this is happening. Things are continuing to get worse before they'll get better. But I believe in God and I trust God. He's got a plan. He's going to work things out. At some point, what is wrong will be set right, and what God has in mind is going to be good for me, and I will feel and know and experience the blessing of it. And when I get to the other side, the good that God has in store far outweighs the difficulty and the suffering and the evil that I'm facing and struggling with now. Now we'll still probably feel like the psalmist who is crying out to God, answer me, answer me. But when God is in the picture for us, when we have faith in God, even we have the ability, and I think that's why this psalm is important, and others that are like it. I don't think Psalm 69 is ever going to replace Psalm 23 as your favorite psalm, but it does help us understand that we can go to God with our answer me, I have questions, and God will give us a sense of peace. And maybe the best answer he'll give us is, I am your answer to all of your questions. Trust in me. And that's how our faith grows, and how our faith in God helps us through difficult times. And so I just want to encourage you with that, because I know we all go through things. We age, and we struggle with that. Our health gets threatened with things, and sometimes to the point of death, and 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 we need this faith that we have in God. As I said, relationships. Sometimes it's things we're dealing with at home, or things we're dealing with at work. When we have questions and the answers aren't forthcoming, that's when our faith in God needs to kick in, when we need to draw close to Him, and understand that He is the answer. God is the answer. Jesus is for me in 2023.